It is a word that does not belong in football, not in the regular vocabulary of the game, not in the language of post-match analysis, not in the broadcast commentary of a World Cup quarterfinal between two sporting nations with no political grievance against each other. But Gary Neville chose it deliberately. He looked at what had just happened to Switzerland's Embolo at the 72nd minute in Kansas City, and he said the word that had been building at the back of his mind across 3 weeks of this tournament's officiating controversies: dictatorship. He called VAR a dictatorship. He said it had become something that imposes its will and leaves the people on the receiving end with no recourse, no appeal, no ability to push back against a decision that changed the entire balance of a World Cup quarterfinal. Gary Neville is not known for inflammatory language. He is known for being specific, for being analytical, for choosing words that mean exactly what he intends them to mean, and for being willing to say them clearly when the evidence supports them. When he reaches for a word like dictatorship, he is not reaching for drama, he is reaching for precision. And the precision of that word applied to VAR at this World Cup is what has made the moment travel so far and so fast across the football world. Because here is what happened, and the details matter enormously. Switzerland had just drawn level with Argentina at 1-1 in Kansas City. Dan Ndoye's composed finish had silenced a crowd that expected Argentine progress. Switzerland were in the ascendancy. They were playing the best football of their match. And then Embolo ran into Argentina's penalty area, went down before Leandro Paredes made contact, and everything changed. Referee João Pedro Pinheiro showed Paredes a yellow card. That was the natural reading of the incident at real-time pace. A challenge, a player going to ground, a booking. Standard. Paredes received the yellow. Embolo was standing, apparently fine. And then VAR intervened. The review team in Dallas examined the footage. What they found was that Paredes had not touched Embolo. The contact that appeared to prompt the fall had not actually occurred. Embolo had gone to ground before the challenge arrived. He had simulated. VAR recommended a review for mistaken identity, a protocol provision that allows the on-field decision to be corrected when the wrong player has been punished. Pinheiro walked to the monitor. He watched. He canceled the yellow for Paredes, and then he reached into his pocket and showed a yellow to Embolo instead. Because Embolo had already been booked earlier in the match, ironically for fouling Paredes himself in the first half, the second yellow became a red. Embolo was sent off, in tears, consoled by teammates who knew immediately that the match had just changed shape entirely. Switzerland would play 38 minutes of normal time and 30 minutes of extra time with 10 men against the reigning world champions. Argentina won 3-1. Switzerland are out. Their first World Cup quarterfinal since 1954 ended not with a goal, but with a card. So what's really happening here, and why has the reaction to this specific decision produced the most sustained and widely shared officiating controversy of the entire tournament, even though the footage clearly shows Embolo did not make contact with Paredes? Let's start with Remo Freuler, because his words after the match are the ones that carry the most weight from inside the dressing room that lived this experience. Freuler is 32 years old. He has played over 300 games in the Premier League for Nottingham Forest and previously for Atalanta in Serie A. He is not inexperienced. He is not prone to dramatic statements. He's a professional footballer at the peak of his career, whose World Cup just ended in Kansas City on the receiving end of a VAR protocol he said he did not understand. His words were these: "It is just a disaster. I don't know what this referee is doing here. I don't understand how a VAR can change a match just like that." He said that there had been many fouls during the match, made also in the first half, and that if VAR was going to intervene for this, it should have been intervening for those moments too. He said the question he cannot answer is how a VAR can change a game with this situation.
That last sentence is the one that matters most. Not the anger, which is understandable and human and entirely proportionate to what his team had just experienced, but the specific question he is asking. How can VAR change a game with this situation? He is not asking whether Embolo touched Paredes. He accepts, on some level, that the footage showed what it showed. What he is asking is a structural question about proportionality, about whether a protocol designed to correct clear and obvious errors should be used to overturn a yellow card for contact that, even if it was simulation, had no direct effect on the match, no goal, no penalty, no tactical disadvantage. A yellow card became a red card because VAR corrected the identity of the player who received it, and the correction of that yellow card eliminated Switzerland's 12th man for the rest of a World Cup quarter-final. Granit Xhaka said something that cuts even deeper. His captain's perspective was this: the rule may be there, they used it, but VAR can kill a game with a situation like this. Do not kill the game like that. 11 against 11, and we had them. Those 4 words, 11 against 11, we had them, are the sporting tragedy of Switzerland's exit in concentrated form. A team that had pulled level, that had momentum, that was playing with the confidence of a side that had already beaten Algeria and Colombia. They were in that match, and then they weren't, because a VAR protocol reached into the 72nd minute and changed the structure of what remained. Murat Yakin, Switzerland's head coach, said something that deserves particular attention because it contains an admission that is both honest and telling. He said he did not know this rule before. He said it is a very harmless situation. A yellow card was awarded. VAR interfered. He called the fact that they introduced such a rule unnecessary. He said it was extremely hurtful and that Switzerland missed a historic opportunity because of a refereeing mistake. Coach of a nation at a World Cup quarter-final said he did not know the rule existed. Now here is the interesting part, because the question of whether the rule should exist, whether VAR should be permitted to correct the identity of a punished player when that correction results in a red card rather than a yellow, is genuinely complex. The IFAB laws that govern the protocol say that if the referee penalizes an offense but has clearly misidentified the player who committed the offense, only the identity of the offender can be reviewed. The guidance does not restrict this to players of the same team. It does not specify that the corrected booking cannot result in a red card. It simply says the identity can be corrected. Under those rules, as written, Pinheiro's decision was not a mistake. It was the application of an existing provision. Embolo had simulated. Paredes had been incorrectly booked. The identity was corrected. The red card followed from the existing booking. All of that is technically correct by the protocol as FIFA has constructed it. What Gary Neville identified with the word dictatorship is not whether any individual part of the protocol is correctly applied. It is whether the aggregate effect of the protocol, its capacity to reach into a match at any moment for any reviewable decision and change the outcome in ways that teams, coaches, and players had no ability to anticipate or prepare for, represents a kind of authority over the game that has grown beyond what is appropriate or proportionate.
There is also a specific irony in the Embolo situation that several analysts flagged immediately after the match. The protocol for reviewing mistaken identity requires that a yellow card has been shown before the review can begin. If Pinheiro had waved the incident away entirely, if he had seen it in real time and made no decision, VAR could not have initiated a review on the merits of Embolo's dive alone. It was specifically the yellow card shown to Paredes that opened the door to the VAR review that led to Embolo's red card. The correct initial decision by Pinheiro, who saw a challenge and responded to it, accidentally created the conditions for the intervention that cost Embolo his place in the match. That irony is not a conspiracy. It is a structural feature of a protocol that produces consequences nobody planned for through a chain of decisions, each of which was individually consistent with the rules as written. And it is precisely this kind of structural complexity that Neville was pointing to when he used the word dictatorship. Not corruption, not bias. A system that imposes outcomes through the application of rules that are technically correct and humanly incomprehensible at the same time. The broader tournament context in which this decision landed cannot be ignored. Argentina have now been involved in 6 major VAR controversies across their 4 knockout matches. The Messi challenge on Mendy reviewed and not punished. The Algeria goal disallowed by reaching nearly 100 yards back through the play. The unreviewed foul before Fernandez's winner against Egypt. The Balogun red card suspension reversed in 48 hours without explanation. The Embolo simulation red card. And in each case, by technical application of the relevant protocols, the outcome benefited Argentina. Separately, the match was officiated by a Portuguese referee and an all-Portuguese officiating crew, because FIFA's rules prohibited English officials from taking charge, and the governing body appointed a crew from the country that had lost the 2022 World Cup final to France, rather than the 2022 World Cup final winners. That decision was technically permissible. Its optics, in the context of everything else surrounding Argentina's tournament, contributed to the pre-match anxiety that was already visible before a ball was kicked. Pierluigi Collina, FIFA's head of referees, was asked about the accumulation of controversies. His response was consistent with every previous response. He defended the officials. He said nobody could question their integrity. He said the system was working as designed. He pointed to the technical correctness of the decisions as evidence of institutional soundness. What he did not address was the question that Freuler and Xhaka and Yakin and Neville and millions of football supporters are actually asking, not whether the rules were applied correctly, but whether the rules, as they are being applied, are producing a game that people can trust and understand. Those are different questions. FIFA keeps answering the first one. The football world keeps asking the second. Switzerland's quarter-final run represents the greatest achievement in their World Cup history since they reached the quarterfinals in 1954, 72 years ago. They beat Algeria in the round of 32, a match that itself produced controversy when the Algerian Federation filed a formal complaint with FIFA about decisions in their group stage loss to Argentina. They beat Colombia on penalties in a match of extraordinary tension. They arrived in Kansas City having earned every inch of the ground they occupied. Granit Xhaka has now played for Switzerland through multiple World Cup cycles with the kind of commitment and leadership that earns the captaincy not once, but repeatedly. Freuler has been one of the most consistent performers in the European game for the best part of a decade. Their team deserved a better ending than a red card for a rule their own coach said he didn't know existed. What Xhaka said, 11 against 11 we had them, will be the sentence that Switzerland's tournament is remembered by. Not the wins, not the penalty shootout, not the tactical intelligence that took them further than their nation had gone in 72 years. 4 words, 11 against 11 we had them. That is the sporting loss inside the institutional story, and it is the part that Gary Neville was responding to when he reached for dictatorship as his word for what VAR has become at this tournament. What do you think? Should a protocol that corrects the identity of a yellow card recipient be permitted to result in a red card that changes the entire balance of a World Cup quarterfinal? Is the technical correctness of a decision sufficient justification for its consequences? Or is there a point at which a system that produces technically correct and humanly incomprehensible outcomes simultaneously has grown beyond what football can absorb?